It's commonly believed that beauty in Hollywood is a powerful weapon, one that opens all doors for women who possess it. But what's often overlooked is that once these actresses reach a certain age, for some reason, the roles stop coming. There are some who've broken the mold thanks to their acting talent, smart role choices, luck, or all of the above. But these are exceptions. Jessica Alba wanted to be one of those exceptions. She's spoken many times about her desire to take on more meaningful roles, but at some point she just disappeared from the screens despite still being a sex symbol. And the rare projects she does star in are far from being great films. Her roles in these movies are certainly not anywhere near Kirk Douglas's Spartacus or something. Living legend vibe and greatness just never came. Why did this happen to an actress who was nominated for Golden Globe, being just a 19-year-old, and whom Cameron chose among hundreds of others? Why didn't the club of pretty and talented actresses open for her? Let's take a closer look at Jessica Alba's career to answer these questions and figure out why, in Jessica's case, all that isn't so important. Jessica showed signs of determination to become an actress pretty early on. It's said that by the age of 5, Alba was already drawn to acting, and by 11 she started taking acting classes and appearing in small projects. At first, Jessica mostly stayed in the background in films and TV shows. For instance, she had a small part in Beverly Hills 90210. Alba remembers working on this one pretty well. So well, in fact, that years later she was pissed, remembering how she and other lesser-known actors were strictly forbidden from making eye contact with the main cast stars. Break this pretty rule and get booted out of set. It's that simple. This made Alba's scenes with the incredibly talented show stars feel absurd and really got on young Jessica's nerves. She endured this nonsense, though, and by the late 90s, began landing roles not just in TV shows, but in films that made it to cinemas. A notable mention here would be her role in the horror comedy Idle Hands, where she played one of the main female characters. The movie even won some awards, though none for Jessica, as the spotlight was mostly on Devon Sawa and Seth Green. But overall, the film wasn't well received by audiences or critics. Despite its decent $25 million budget, it bombed at the box office, grossing just $4 million. The film's questionable quality contributed to its flop, but it's also believed that the Columbine High School massacre did as well. It occurred just before the film's release, significantly affecting its performance, given the movie was violent and full of dark humor. A turning point for 18-year-old Jessica Alba came when she landed a role in James Cameron's TV series Dark Angel. After the success of Titanic, Cameron was looking for a television project and initially considered doing a family drama. However, Cameron supposedly went on some manga spree that year, becoming particularly obsessed with Alita, Battle Angel. So he shifted direction and went for an Agent 47-like female-led action series. Cameron always had a thing for strong female characters, with Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley as prime examples. By the way, we have videos about both Terminator and Alien on our channel, so check those out after this one. Cameron spent a long time searching for the perfect actress to play Hitman in a skirt. The director chose Alba from over 1,000 candidates. By his own admission, it wasn't her acting that blew him away, but there was something about her that kept drawing him back to her audition tape. Once Alba was cast, the writers began shaping the show around her. The first season of Dark Angel was a hit, and the press just couldn't shut up about her massive talent. The actress even received a Golden Globe nomination. However, after that, something went wrong. Ratings of the second season dropped by nearly 4 times compared to the first one. Some believe another external event played a role here. This time it wasn't a school shooting, but 9/11. The show's vision, which was intriguing before the tragedy, suddenly felt too depressing and only amplified the already somber mood in society. Additionally, the show's time slot was changed, causing it to lose much of its teen audience. All of this led to Dark Angel being canceled after its second season. Cameron was so devastated by this experience that he stayed away from television for 22 years, only returning to it just recently. After Dark Angel, it was time for Jessica to step into a big cinema. She started with The Sleeping Dictionary and now hates this film. Not only did she have to shoot in jungles full of poisonous snakes and use bushes for bathroom breaks, but she also looks back at her performance with huge skepticism, claiming she's as good an actress there as a sock. In this movie, Alba's modest nature came through. She refused to participate in the intimate scenes herself, and a body double was used instead. Next, Alba signed on for the musical drama Honey. Initially, she wasn't considered for the role. Rumors say it was written for singer Aaliyah, but after Aaliyah tragically died in a plane crash just months before filming, Jessica was cast. Some later claimed this rumor is BS, and that Beyoncé was the first choice, but she couldn't find time for the project. Either way, Jessica took the role and spent months training in ballet, jazz, and hip-hop dancing to prepare. With an $18 million budget, the film grossed 62, pretty good, So there were sequels, though Jessica was no longer involved and none of the follow-ups matched the success of the first one. In 2003, Jessica was eager to land a blockbuster role and tried to break into Pirates of the Caribbean, but the creators chose Keira Knightley instead. Alba was looking for other opportunities and showed interest in playing Elektra in Daredevil, alongside Ben Affleck. At the time, there was growing attention around Frank Miller's comics and everything related to him. The comic book adaptation era was beginning, and getting into one of these projects was a smart move. Alba didn't participate in Daredevil, but she did manage to land a part in another Miller's novel adaptation, Sin City. Director Robert Rodriguez was eager to adapt this one. In fact, he didn't just want to adapt it, but translate the graphic novel into cinema, as he put it. That's why the movie doesn't even credit a screenwriter, instead simply stating, based on the graphic novel by Frank Miller, and that's it. Frank Miller himself was initially unsure if the neo-noir spirit of his novel could be captured on screen, but Rodriguez quickly shot a short intro scene with Josh Hartnett and showed it to Miller, saying, "That's how it's gonna look, buddy. Top-tier stuff, let's go." That scene is in the final film, by the way, and can be seen at the very beginning. Rodriguez was determined to stay true to the comic's tone and directly used images from the novel for a storyboard, barely changing anything. He was also very picky when casting. One of the first actors to join was Mickey Rourke, though Rodriguez did briefly consider Michael Madsen for the role. Madsen eventually landed a different one. They say, during a party for Kill Bill, Michael walked up to Rodriguez and asked why the hell he hadn't been cast in Sin City yet. So Rodriguez immediately signed him for one of the remaining roles. "Good move, Michael. Let me try it." "Why the hell haven't you pressed like button yet?" Thank you. Back to video. Probably at that same event, Rodriguez partied hard with Quentin Tarantino. Partied so good that Quentin agreed to direct a short scene in Sin City, the car ride with Clive Owen and Benicio del Toro. At one point, Jessica Simpson was considered for the role of Nancy Callahan, but in the end, Rodriguez chose Jessica Alba. Perhaps Alba signed the contract without even looking at it, as she was later surprised to learn that she was to portray a stripper. Again, it's worth noting Alba's principle of not undressing on camera, which she stuck to in Sin City as well, managing to avoid showing more than she was comfortable with. This misfortune surely disappointed a certain segment of the audience. Carla Gugino covered for Alba in this one, though. So in the end, everyone was still happy, and the film performed great at the box office, gaining almost $160 million with a budget of $40. Not only did it please audiences, but critics were throwing their hats in the air and crying happily. One of the world's first fully digital live-action movies, Sin City had a striking visual style and won numerous awards. Everyone with a notable role in the movie got their share of fame, including Alba. Additionally, the film's success pushed forward other adaptations of Miller's comics, like 300, which was released a bit later and became even a bigger hit. We talk about it in our Gerard Butler video. Alongside Rodriguez's movie, that year, Jessica also starred in another comic book adaptation, Fantastic Four. It wasn't as fortunate, though. The development of the Fantastic Four movie adaptation started way back in the 1980s, with various directors being attached to the project, each bringing their own vision. At one point, Chris Columbus, known for Home Alone, Stepmom, Mrs. Doubtfire, and the first two Harry Potter films, signed on as director. He wanted to cast Meg Ryan as Sue Storm and her husband Dennis Quaid as Reed Richards, but things didn't work out, and Columbus stepped away from the director's chair, deciding to stay on as the producer. Directors kept changing, and over time, actresses like Charlize Theron, Cameron Diaz, and Renee Zellweger were considered for the role of Sue. When Tim Story finally took over as director, the part went to Jessica Alba. Chris Columbus, still a producer on the film, tried to influence the young director and push for a more comedic tone, like in the old Batman TV series. But Tim Story chose to follow a more balanced approach, like in Sam Raimi's recent Spider-Man. The result wasn't exactly what everyone had hoped for. While the film made a decent $333 million at the box office, with a budget of $100, the reviews from both critics and audiences were crap, like too many silly jokes, poor acting, and choppy storytelling. Alba took the most hits from the critics, getting her first Razzie nomination for this role. But it wasn't just Fantastic Four that brought Alba this nomination. Another 2005 film, Into the Blue with Paul Walker, contributed as well. This is another movie Jessica hates. According to her, when she signed on, her character wasn't a joke, but after endless rewrites, she turned into some walking mannequin, demonstrating everyone different sorts of bikinis. Speaking of bikinis, here's a fun fact. The swimsuits Alba wore in Into the Blue revealed so much of actress's surface that the studio feared the film might get an adult rating, so they cut some of the scenes. In the trailer, they used digital effects to make bikinis a bit more visible, so some viewers wouldn't tear the armrests off their seats from overexcitement. However, all these efforts didn't help the film earn decent money, and it flopped, making only $46 million on a budget of $50. Things could have gotten even more intriguing if that same year, Alba had agreed to star in Blood Rain by an incredible German talent, Uwe Boll. But Jessica was repulsed by the film's violence and the presence of nudity, which she consistently refused to do. This movie could have completely sunk Jessica's career, but instead, Kristanna Loken absorbed this blow, right with her chest it is. As for Jessica, things weren't so bad yet. She still had two commercially successful franchises up her sleeve, Fantastic Four and Sin City. Work on the Fantastic Four sequel began right away in 2005. Alba recalls that during shooting this one, she was persistently advised not to make ugly faces during emotional scenes and should sob with some style. And the tears, like screw them, they can be added in with CGI later. Rise of the Silver Surfer received slightly better reviews than its predecessor. Like, the first part was called Royally Awful Trash, and the second was claimed to be just average trash. The first one was financially successful, though, so critics could be ignored. But the second, well, it made barely enough money to buy some cookies. The film started off amazingly, grossing a record-breaking $58 million in the US on its opening weekend in 2007. However, it quickly nosedived, and in the end, it managed to collect $300 million with a budget of $130. Considering marketing expenses and cinema cuts, the studio probably didn't make anything from it, except for more bags of dicks from critics. 20th Century Fox wasn't a fan of such a bargain, so it abandoned plans for a third movie and tried to reboot the series in 2015. However, the reboot turned out even worse, and for now, the series is gathering dust in a forgotten corner. As if that wasn't enough, Good Luck Chuck was released the same year, which audiences managed to tolerate, but critics tore it apart. Alba stepped into the role originally meant for Jennifer Love Hewitt, who had to drop out due to a packed filming schedule. The movie's earnings were decent, but not enough to offset the terrible reviews. Realizing she needed to win over the critics, Alba started taking roles in low-budget films that weren't aiming for gaining money. Among these projects were Meet Bill and The Ten, but even these movies got smacked. There were still opportunities to showcase acting talents in Awake in the Eye, which were released in 2007 and 2008. But in Awake, Jessica starred alongside another critic's sweetheart, Hayden Christensen, and any attempts to channel Stanislavski vibes were doomed from the start. Audiences, however, didn't mind the film, and its $32 million box office on an $8 million budget confirms that. Critics, on the other hand, threw Razzie nominations at both Alba and Christensen. The Eye could have been Alba's chance to turn things around. Initially, Renee Zellweger was set to play the lead, but she chose to spook audiences in another horror movie, Case 39. Jessica really wanted to star in some horror, but not a gory slasher, something more elegant, as she put it. Being a remake of an Asian film of the same name, The Eye was fine as hell, and Alba took preparations very seriously. She had violin lessons, learned basic Braille, and spent time with blind people to better immerse herself in the role. Was it worth it? Well, that's questionable. The movie did okay at the box office, making $58 million on a budget of $12 million. Audiences didn't mind it, but the majority of critics still weren't impressed and threw another Razzie nomination at Jessica. Perhaps Alba could have avoided that Razzie nomination in 2008 if it weren't for her role in The Love Guru. While critics had panned her previous two films, pretty okay-ish box office had somewhat softened the blow. But The Love Guru failed everywhere it could. It had a fat budget of $62 million for a movie of its kind, but managed to earn only $40. Mike Myers, who not only starred in the film but also created it, suffered the most. The Love Guru buried his Hollywood career, and now he mostly makes small appearances wherever his friends call him. Some believe that around this time, carefully choosing the next roles could have improved Jessica's career. But that didn't happen. 2 years later, Alba returned with several films, including The Killer Inside Me, Valentine's Day, Little Fockers, and Robert Rodriguez's Machete and Spy Kids 4, since the director enjoyed working with Alba in Sin City. Most of these movies did fairly well at the box office, but it didn't help Jessica at all. Quite the opposite. She was once again nominated for a Razzie for all these films, and finally won it this time. Jessica was only 30 years old, and despite this crappy roles parade, she still was a sex symbol. She probably could have found ways to get back into major projects that didn't make critics cringe even before the release. But in 2011, Alba distanced a bit from acting and focused on making safe and eco products for kids. Maybe she decided to play it safe, or perhaps she followed her intuition or her heart. I mean, who the hell knows? Publicly, she claims her inspiration to create the Honest Company came from her care for her daughter. Later, Alba's company expanded and included cosmetics, clothing, and more, and within a couple of years, it was valued at $1 billion. So now it was business and family first, acting second. In the last 10 years, the only notable Jessica's films were the sequel to Sin City and Mechanic Resurrection. Sin City had always been Jessica's ace up her sleeve, pretty much her only film that critics didn't on. But the sequel took forever. Frank Miller decided to play a bit of George Martin here and kept writing and endlessly rewriting, while Rodriguez ran around telling the press how mind-blowing the sequel will be. To speed up the scriptwriting process, they even hired William Monahan, the screenwriter of The Departed. Looks like William got Miller's butt moving, and in 2012, filming Sin City: A Dame to Kill for began. Rodriguez assembled the perfect cast for the sequel, and the signature visual style got even better, thanks to the bigger budget. This time, the film's main femme fatale was Eva Green. Robert Rodriguez selected her from a lineup of actresses like Angelina Jolie, Salma Hayek, Rachel Weisz, Scarlett Johansson, and other aesthetic tornadoes. Jessica returned to her role as Nancy, who suddenly transformed from a sweet baby-faced stripper into a tough chick, wielding a couple of guns. This wasn't a new image for Alba and had been successful before, but once again, some critics didn't like it, criticizing the film specifically for Jessica's character's sudden transformation. A Dame to Kill for stayed true to the spirit of the first, pretty successful film. But something went wrong here and the sequel bombed royally. It pulled in $40 million with a budget of $65, destroying Rodriguez's plans for a third part of the franchise in which he had planned to cast Johnny Depp. As for Mechanic Resurrection, which came out in 2016, it did reasonably well at the box office, mainly the Chinese one. This success didn't improve Alba's acting career, though. But it seems it's not all that important anymore for Jessica. What's important is not to forget to leave a like before the video ends. So, currently Alba rarely appears in movies at all, and mainly focuses on her family and The Honest Company. According to Alba, now she acts simply because it's kind of fun. What fun she gets from starring in amazing ones like Killers Anonymous or the TV series LA's Finest is a tough question. Anyway, Jessica knows best. It appears these small gigs genuinely bring her joy, and that's what really matters. Stay cool and see you in the next video.